The unexpected call. Trevor Noah was wrapping up a regular day at the studio in Manhattan. It had been a slow news week, nothing too exciting, and he was hoping the guest tonight would at least bring some sparkle. But when his producer ran in and whispered, Keanu Reeves just agreed to appear tonight, Trevor stopped mid-sentence. Wait, the Keanu Reeves? He barely does interviews. 30 minutes later, Keanu walked in. He was calm, dressed in a black suit with no tie, and looked like someone carrying centuries of stories in his eyes. But it wasn't until they sat down under the bright lights that Trevor noticed something odd. Keanu wasn't here to promote a film. He was here with a secret. I wasn't supposed to be here. As the cameras rolled, Trevor smiled and asked, "So Keanu, what brings you to the show tonight?" Keanu looked at him, paused, and then said, "To be honest, I don't know how much time I have left." The entire studio fell into an eerie silence. Trevor, caught off guard, leaned in. "What do you mean?" Keanu continued, his voice steady but low. "There's something I've kept secret for over 20 years. And last week, someone sent me a letter that changed everything." He pulled a crumpled envelope from his inner pocket and handed it to Trevor. The camera zoomed in. It read, "They're watching. Tell the truth before they erase you." The Tokyo incident. Keanu recounted a trip to Tokyo in 2003. Not for a movie, but for a personal mission. He was invited by a scientist who claimed to have discovered a hidden frequency, one that could transmit memories, emotions, even pain, between people without speaking. "I sat in a silent room," Keanu said, "and I could feel what the man across from me was feeling. He had lost his son. I cried without knowing why. That's when I knew it was real. But after that visit, the lab burned down. The scientist vanished. And Keanu was warned, by someone who only called himself the archivist, never to speak of it again." Trevor looked stunned. "Are you saying people are hiding this?" Keanu nodded. "And I think they know I'm speaking now. Hollywood's hidden layer." Keanu explained that some people in Hollywood knew about this technology and used it. "I once saw a fellow actor break down during a scene. I thought it was just great acting. But then I realized he was absorbing my grief. Something had activated that frequency between us." Trevor asked, "So, are you saying Hollywood uses emotional manipulation for real?" Keanu sighed. "It's deeper than that. There's a room in Los Angeles, hidden beneath a studio that doesn't exist on any map. They call it the Vault. And inside it are recordings of feelings, of thoughts, stored, collected, used." The audience was frozen. Trevor's crew stopped moving behind the cameras. "The woman who warned me." Keanu leaned forward. "There was a woman. I only met her once. She was blind, but she could see right into you. She told me my life was never supposed to be this way, that I wasn't born into this world. I was placed." Trevor, nearly whispering now, said, "Do you believe her?" "I do now," Keanu replied. "Because everything she said, it's coming true. My memories are slipping. Sometimes I wake up and don't recognize the skyline. I see people who don't exist the next day. Either I'm going mad, or someone is rewriting my story." Trevor stared. "What do you want people to do with this?" Keanu said, "Remember who you are. Trust your real emotions, not the ones fed to you." The broadcast cut short. 10 minutes before the show ended, the screen suddenly went black. The live feed was interrupted. Social media exploded. Conspiracy threads emerged. Some viewers claimed the full interview was wiped from their recordings. Others said it never aired at all. But one clip survived, just 3 seconds. Keanu looking directly into the camera, whispering, "They're coming. Protect what's real." And then static. Trevor Noah hasn't spoken publicly about that night since. Keanu Reeves disappeared for 6 weeks before reappearing in rural Montana, saying nothing but, "It wasn't a movie. It was a warning." The Midnight Visitor. It had been nearly 2 months since Keanu's interview was cut off mid-broadcast. People searched for re-uploads, torrents, dark web copies, but most of them were corrupted or missing the final 10 minutes. Conspiracy theorists said a secret agency had pulled the plug. Skeptics dismissed it as a marketing stunt. But Trevor Noah, he wasn't talking. Until one rainy night, a private security guard at a storage facility in Newark made a report. Around 2:37 a.m., a black SUV pulled into the lot. A man stepped out, tall, with long hair and a hooded coat. He didn't say a word. He placed a sealed black box in one of the climate-controlled vaults, signed a name that was immediately redacted in the report, and vanished. That box. It was labeled Red Frequency, Episode 0. Trevor received a call the next morning from a restricted number. "This is the woman he spoke about," the voice said. "You still have time." That night, he returned to his studio alone, logged into a secure offline system, and played the file from the vault. Inside was the missing 10 minutes. Keanu spoke again. "If you're seeing this, then I'm no longer in the places you expect. It will come for you next, Trevor. But don't run. Remember the name, Rose Path. It's where it all began." Trevor froze. He had heard that name before, from an old letter he'd received years ago from a childhood friend who vanished in Zimbabwe. A friend who had said, "If the lights ever go out for real, go to Rose Path." Now it made sense. Road to Rose Path. Trevor Noah didn't sleep that night. He printed the name, Rose Path, on a piece of paper and stared at it for hours. Every time he looked away, the words seemed to change slightly. Sometimes it looked like Rose Part, other times like rote math. But it wasn't just a name, it was a trigger. After cross-referencing old letters, obscure blog posts, and notes from his late grandfather's journal, Trevor traced the name to a forgotten mining town in northern Montana. Population, 14. Cell reception, none. Internet, 0. He flew out the next morning under a fake name. As his rental car approached Rose Path, the landscape grew unsettling. The trees leaned toward the road unnaturally, as if whispering secrets. There were no birds, no animals, only wind and strange clicking sounds in the distance. Then he saw the sign, "Welcome to Rose Path. We remember what the world forgot." Trevor's phone died instantly. He parked outside the only building with lights on, a tiny library with windows covered in red cloth. Inside, an elderly woman greeted him without surprise. "You're late," she said. "Keanu told me you'd come." Trevor blinked. He was here. She nodded and handed him an envelope, sealed in wax with the letter Lambda, the same symbol on Keanu's hidden memory file. The woman then whispered, "You have 1 hour. After that, they'll hear you." Trevor opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a photo of himself as a child, standing next to Keanu Reeves, in a place he'd never been. And behind them a machine. Old, rusted, but unmistakably advanced. On the back of the photo were 6 words written in red ink. "You've used it before. Remember now." The forgotten machine. Trevor held the photograph like it might burn through his hands. There he was, no older than 10, standing beside Keanu Reeves in front of a strange machine that shimmered with copper rings and glowing blue filaments. But the memory didn't exist in his mind. He looked up at the elderly woman in the red-draped library. "What is this? I've never seen this before." She didn't answer directly. Instead, she walked to a wooden cabinet, unlocked it with a key she wore around her neck, and pulled out a single item, a rusted headset connected to wires wrapped in red cloth. "This," she said, "is the Echolink. It doesn't give you memories. It reminds you of the ones they took." Trevor stepped back. "Who took them?" "The ones who designed this world to forget," she whispered. Trevor remembered Keanu's warning, "Protect what's real." He hesitated, then sat in the chair. The woman gently placed the headset on his head. As soon as it touched his temples, the world changed. Suddenly, he wasn't in the library anymore. He was inside a cold, silver room with smooth metallic walls. He stood at the age of 12, watching 2 men argue in a language he didn't understand. One of them was Keanu, younger, sharper, and the other wore a black coat with a name tag that read, "Dr. Alan Reese, Level 7, Narrative Division." Then Trevor saw it, the machine, the same one from the photo. But this time it was on, spinning, humming, pulling electricity from nowhere. "You said it wouldn't reach his timeline." Dr. Reese shouted. Keanu replied, "He's already crossed. He has to remember, or everything repeats." Trevor, inside the memory, turned his gaze directly toward his older self, the real him, watching, and whispered, "They placed you inside a story. But you're not just a character, you're the author." Then, static. The vision cut. Trevor was back in the library, gasping for air. Sweat ran down his back. His fingers were shaking. The old woman stepped forward and placed her hand on his shoulder. Now you understand, she said gently. You didn't meet Keanu this year. You met him before. You've been trying to reach each other across rewritten timelines. And now they know you remember. Outside, dogs began to howl. Lights flickered. She looked to the door. They're here. Trevor stood, still clutching the photo. Then we finished what they started. And with that, the real war, the war for memory and truth, had begun. The agents of rewrite. The wind howled through the library windows, and the strange night noises outside warned that something was coming to Rose Path. The front door creaked open slowly. 3 figures stepped inside, faces covered by expressionless masks, long black coats shining under the dim light, and eyes lifeless. They were known only as the editors. Each had the same symbol on their back. The old woman didn't hesitate. She pressed a hidden switch behind the bookshelf, and the floor beneath them opened, revealing a spiral staircase leading downward. Go now. There's not much time, she whispered. Trevor clutched the photograph tightly, his heart pounding. He followed her down, the Echolink device wrapped in red cloth still in her hands. They passed 7 doors underground. Finally, they entered a large, circular chamber. In the center stood the machine, no longer just a photograph, but real, humming, glowing. Columns pulsed with light. Strange antennae flickered with an unknown energy. This is the rewrite room, the woman said. Here, thoughts can change history. Trevor approached. The machine lit up as if recognizing him. Keanu's voice echoed from a small speaker, a pre-recorded message. If you're hearing this, it means they haven't found you yet, but they're close. Start now. Emotion is the first code. Thought is the second. A forgotten memory is the key. Trevor closed his eyes. He thought of his deepest pain, the night he lost his mother, then his first love, then that night in Tokyo, the one he had buried, the invisible lab, the strange frequency. The machine responded. A blue light filled the room. Tape spun overhead. Images flashed. At the same time above ground, in the library, the editors tore down walls, searching. One of them recognized the woman. The old memory keeper, he hissed. She smiled softly. Every new thing was once forgotten. Now, meet the new author. She sacrificed herself to buy Trevor time. When Trevor opened his eyes again, the screen showed hundreds of images. People, cities, rooms, a stream of memories rewriting themselves in real time. All changing with one tool. Memory. He whispered, I'm ready to write. And he typed the first line. This time, we do not forget. Instantly, the editors stopped moving. The awakening protocol. The silence was unnerving. Trevor stood still as the last flicker of light faded from the editor's eyes. One by one, their bodies locked up like statues, motionless and cold. The command he had typed into the rewrite machine, this time, we do not forget, had triggered something deep within the system. Not just a message, but a code embedded into the very fabric of memory networks. The old woman was gone. Her sacrifice had bought him time, but not answers. The machine still hummed faintly, like a sleeping giant. Then a low chime echoed through the chamber. A drawer beneath the main console slowly slid open. Inside was a small black cube and a handwritten note in familiar handwriting. T, this isn't just a machine. It's a transmitter. The rest of them need to remember too. Upload the memory. Use the cube. KR. Keanu had left one final task. Trevor picked up the cube. As he held it, images surged into his head. Cities crumbling under lies. Children staring into screens that fed them manufactured emotions. History books rewritten in real time. And then faces. People like him. Others who had once remembered but were reset. The cube was a memory beacon. A device capable of awakening suppressed memories across vast distances. He looked at the machine. There was a port shaped exactly like the cube. He took a breath and inserted it. Elsewhere, across the world, in a park in Berlin, a teenage girl suddenly froze mid-skate. She dropped to her knees, gasping, as childhood images she never remembered having came rushing back. In Sao Paulo, a retired professor stared at his wall and whispered, They erased my brother. They said he never existed. But I remember him. In Johannesburg, a man painting murals of forgotten heroes began to cry. The colors he used, once just guesses, now came to him vividly. This is how they really looked. The cube's signal reached further than Trevor had imagined. It pulsed through the hidden frequencies, not through Wi-Fi or satellites, but through feeling itself. Every soul that had once encountered the vault, the Echo Link, or the Forbidden Machine was remembering. Back in Rosepath, alarms blared within the chamber. The machine was overheating. But Trevor didn't stop. A hidden panel opened behind him. Inside was a leather case. He opened it. A phone. Not just any phone, a prototype, old, with glowing edges and a logo he had never seen before. A closed eye. It buzzed once. Then, a message appeared. Ed, welcome back, author. Your counsel is waiting. Gee, Trevor felt the weight of everything now. He wasn't just a host or a journalist. He was a piece of something ancient. A system of truth keepers who had existed long before media, before history was even written down. He wasn't alone. Far away, in a wooden cabin high in the Rockies, a figure stepped out onto a porch. Keanu Reeves looked up at the stars as he felt the pulse ripple through the air. He smiled. They did it, he whispered. One memory at a time. They're waking up. The Council of the Remembered. Trevor stared at the glowing phone. Its screen shimmered softly, not with icons, but with memories. Visual fragments floated. Faces he didn't know, symbols etched in stone, a spinning book with blank pages. Then a soft female voice spoke through the device. This is Eden. We've been watching over the last signal carriers. Welcome to the Council of the Remembered, Trevor N. Oa. His hands trembled. Council? You mean there are others, Lee? Kumi. Not many, Eden replied. Just 11 who resisted full overwrite. You're the 12th. And now, with the cube activated, thousands more are starting to wake up. But time is short. The editors aren't gone. They've only oust. The screen shifted. A map appeared, marked with pulsing red points around the globe. Locations where memory awakenings had triggered anomalies. One point blinked brightest. Zurich, Switzerland. That's your next destination, Eden said. There's a vault key hidden beneath the old CERN site. You'll need it to complete the sequence. Trevor's head spun. But why me? I'm not trained, No. T special. You were. Before they made you forget. You and Keanu were both part of the first rewrite. The only two who survived it with fragments intact. You chose to be reset, T. Oh gee. Inside. Trevor fell silent. Somewhere deep inside, that truth felt right. Meanwhile, Zurich, Switzerland. A woman named Lena Moretti, a former linguist and now a recluse, had just awoken from a seizure-like state. She had been blind in her left eye for 20 years. Now, suddenly, she could see again. But only when she closed her right eye. What she saw wasn't the world around her. It was memory, layered above the present. She saw tunnels beneath CERN, hidden doors no scanner could detect, and a silver coin bearing the words, "Truth lives longest underground." And then a face appeared in her vision, Trevor's. She'd never met him, yet she knew him. She whispered, "You're the last light, aren't you?" Back in Rosepath, Trevor packed quickly. The Echo Link was disassembled and wrapped in cloth. The black cube was still warm. As he stepped outside, the world felt newer. Not because it had changed, but because he could finally see it for what it truly was. A white SUV was waiting outside. Inside sat a driver in a tan coat and silver gloves. He didn't speak, just handed Trevor a sealed envelope. It read, "Zurich, do not take a flight. The sky is compromised." Trevor climbed in. The journey ahead wouldn't be safe, but it would be real. And real was all that mattered now. Final scene, deep underground, unseen. In a room of glass and black steel, 12 seats surrounded a slow-turning sphere of blue light. 11 were filled. One remained empty. A voice spoke. The 12th remembers. The author has crossed the threshold. Prepare the LL sequence. Another voice replace. IED. Hey, N, D the editors. The. Why adapt? We must be faster. The empty chair shimmered, and slowly it began to solidify. The vault beneath Zurich. It took over 2 days. Trevor traveled by back roads, through forest trails and unnamed borders. No GPS, no phone signal, only the sealed envelope with ink that shimmered under moonlight, giving directions he couldn't read unless his heart rate slowed below 70 BPM, a biometric ink keyed to his body. When he finally crossed into Switzerland, Zurich lay before him like a sleeping creature. Rain fell constantly, like the city was mourning something it couldn't name. But Trevor wasn't alone anymore. A woman in a gray coat waited for him near the edge of the Limmat River. She had short black hair, one bright green eye, and the other milky white. But when she blinked, both eyes shimmered, one seeing the world and one seeing what hid beneath it. Lena, he asked. You remember, she replied calmly, though they had never met. No, Trevor said, but I feel like I should. She nodded and took his hand. Then we begin. Beneath the old CERN site. They took a tram, then a private car, and finally hiked through the back roads to the long-abandoned satellite CERN facility just outside Zurich. It had supposedly been shut down after a magnetic anomaly years ago. But Lena showed him what no one else could see, a staircase that flickered in and out of reality unless you looked at it through a mirror. At the bottom of the stairs, they reached a hexagonal vault door. No keypad, no handle, just a smooth obsidian surface and a single inscription in Latin, Memoria Vera, Vox Origul. True, memory. Vo, ice is the origin. Lena turned to Trevor. You must speak the word you haven't spoken since the first rewrite. Trevor's heart began to race. The edges of the world pulsed, and a pressure built behind his eyes. And then, a whisper, soft but certain, escaped his lips. Althra. The door groaned. Metal shifted. The vault opened. Inside, they found a chamber that felt ancient yet untouched by time. Its walls were covered in glowing etchings, not wires but veins. The energy here wasn't electrical. It was emotional. At the center lay a pedestal. Upon it, a silver cube. But this one was different from the one in Rose Path. It had 3 sides and no bottom. Trevor reached for it. Suddenly, the room shook violently. Alarms blared, but not mechanical alarms. They were like thoughts screaming into his skull. Lena staggered. No, they followed us. One of them breached the chain. Above them, something descended. Not a man, not a machine, but a figure built from shifting memories, a corrupted entity formed by stolen thoughts. A reconstructor. It hissed. You do not belong here. You are a page out of order. Trevor stood his ground, voice shaking. Then we're rewriting the book. Lena grabbed the new cube and placed it against the center pillar. The moment it touched, the reconstructor shattered, its form unable to survive inside the presence of a pure, uncorrupted memory. The tremor stopped. The chamber fell still. And then, a beam of white light burst upward from the pedestal, through the concrete layers, the sky, and into space. It was a beacon to the rest of the council. In the orbiting relay station, 30,000 feet above Earth, a silent alert blinked. A satellite once believed defunct, code name, the lamp, came alive. Inside its core, a chair rotated to face the Earth. The person inside smiled. Trevor and Lena have awakened the vault key. Phase 2 begins now. Phase We2, the signal rebellion. The light that erupted from the Zurich vault didn't fade. It didn't blink. It burned like a second sun, invisible to most, but blinding to the awakened. In cities across the globe, those who had been stirred by the memory wave began to gather. Teachers, artists, former agents, children who'd never dreamed before, all fell to pull. Not to a place, but to an idea. The world they lived in was a shell, and something inside it was breaking. Trevor and Lena climbed from the underground vault, just as police drones hovered above. But these weren't government machines. They bore no insignia, just a symbol. Editors, Lena said under her breath, pulling Trevor by the arm. They're not waiting anymore. They ran down a dark alleyway as beams of light sliced through the fog. One of the drones emitted a pulse that caused Trevor's vision to blur, not from sound, but memory disruption. The air itself shimmered with false thoughts. Lena tossed him a silver coin. Hold it. Tight. It stabilizes your recall. The coin was warm in his palm. As soon as he gripped it, the world stopped twisting. They ducked into a shuttered bookstore. Inside, a man in a wool coat was waiting. He had kind eyes, a limp in his left leg, and a deep scar under his jaw. I'm Saeed, council operative from Sector 5, he said calmly. We've been tracking your signal since Zurich lit up. You're not alone anymore. Meanwhile, Montana. Keanu Reeves sat in front of a fireplace, staring into the flames. A small screen beside him buzzed. The old prototype phone Trevor had received had sent back a signal. He placed his hand over it and whispered, he found it. Suddenly, the fire turned blue. Behind him, a door opened, and an older woman stepped in, bald, with tattoos over her scalp and a voice like velvet iron. Time to return, Keanu, she said. The council needs all 12. The first rewrite is beginning to crumble. They're remembering too fast. Keanu stood, strapped on a dark coat with a symbol etched inside. The closed eye. I was hoping we'd never have to do phase 2, he muttered. But we must, she said, because the editors have authorized something worse. Back in Zurich, the editor directive. Inside a secret control room under Lake Geneva, the editor's core brain, a sentient MEM, Ori AI called. Virius came online. Cognitive resistance has reached level 4, it announced. Engage Rue. Write protocol black. A synthetic voice replied. Permission granted. Activate global memory dampening. Begin purge sequence. Target all level 12 recall agents. A list of names scrolled on the screen. Trevor, Lena, Keanu, Saeed, and more. The war for memory had gone hot. Inside the council's mobile safe house, location, unknown. Trevor watched the map on Saeed's wall as red zones began to expand. Cities where memories were being scrubbed live. People are forgetting again, Trevor said in disbelief. Right now, as they're waking up, Lena stood silently, eyes glowing faintly. They want to erase us before we write the ending. Trevor turned to her. Then let's give them a story they can't erase. Final scene, in the sky over Iceland. A council aircraft cut through the clouds, heading toward the hidden station codenamed the Arch. Inside sat the remaining members of the 12. One chair remained empty, until it didn't. Keanu entered, eyes burning, coat dripping from rain. He sat. I'm back, he said. The council leader stood. Then let phase 2 begin in full. Memory is no longer passive. We write back. And across the globe, the story began to resist. The editor general. Location. The Arch. Council Sky Station. Classified altitude. The council room pulsed with energy. Now, all 12 had gathered. Keanu, Trevor, Lena, Saeed, and 8 others. Each one a survivor of previous rewrites. Each one carrying pieces of a forgotten world. They were known not by name, but by their legacy roles. The Keeper, the Diver, the Restorer, the Sentinel, and others. A live stream of world activity unfolded across the curved walls. Cities glowing with awakening minds, and others dimming into forced forgetfulness. Trevor stood beside Keanu at the central console. How do we stop them from erasing it again? He asked. Keanu pressed a hidden panel. A new interface emerged, the counter-signal core. This, Keanu said, is a pulse writer. It doesn't just protect memory. It embeds it, roots it in the minds of people so deeply, not even a full rewrite can scrub it. Saeed added, but it needs one thing before it can broadcast. Trevor raised an eyebrow. What? Lena stepped forward. A voice. A true one. And it has to come from someone the world once trusted. Everyone turned to Trevor. His heart sank. Elsewhere, Virius command, Sector Black. The editors were gathering. In a cathedral-like chamber lined with memory archives, the core of the editing network sat pulsing, dark, glowing cables running like veins through the walls. At the highest seat of the platform stood a tall figure in a silver cloak and no face. just a mirrored surface where the face should be. The editor general. No one had ever spoken to them directly. Even the highest-ranking agents communicated through filtered proxies. But now the gene. Raoul moved, stepped, head forward, and spoke. The council has activated the pulse rider. They intend to anchor memories beyond reach. This is the final act of rebellion. His voice was smooth, almost fatherly. We allowed 12 rewrites. We let their myths spread. But the of free story is over. He turned Ned toward the Cham. BER's central command node. Prepare Operation Clean Quill. Dester, or the council's archive. Start with Zurich. Back in the arch, the 12 watched as the warning lights flashed. Zurich had gone dark. Memory pings failed. Trevor clenched his fists. They're wiping the Awakeners. Keanu looked him in the eye. You still want to speak? Trevor took the mic. The pulse rider powered up. The countdown began. 1 minute. He looked into the camera. Not for TV, not for the internet, but for every awakened soul tuned in through the echo of the memory signal. The thousands, maybe millions who had felt something inside them stir. Trevor said, they told us we were imagining things. That we dreamed 2-6. Idly. That we me. Remembered. But we. Never broken. Just itten. And now we write back. This story isn't theirs anymore. It's yours. Hold onto your memories. Cherish the ones that hurt. Remember. Your pain, your joy, your even if they try to take it. You are not alone. The pulse rider hit midnight and fired. The world reacts. In Manila, a grandmother awoke from dementia, whispering a lullaby her daughter had never heard before. In Nairobi, a former codebreaker remembered a song from a childhood that didn't exist in any record. In Detroit, a homeless man dropped to his knees and sobbed. I knew I didn't imagine my sister. The memories stuck. The rewrite failed. Every attempt by the editors to erase was met with resistance. And the face of the editor general cracked. Literally, his mirrored mask split. And beneath it was not a man, but an interfa. Sea of ancient AI code, corrupted B. Why years of ethical bypasses? He hissed. Then we bring them into the story. If they won, forget, they will drown in fiction. Final scene, Keanu and Trevor alone. Back in the station, Keanu and Trevor looked out the window at Earth below. We want a moment, Keanu said. But a moment is all the editors need to twist reality again. Trevor stared at the lights below. Then let's make the next moment louder than anything they've ever heard. Enter the Mirage Protocol. Trevor's voice had changed the world. Across continents, the awakened clung to their memories with a fire that refused to dim. The Pulse Rider's signal echoed in hidden corners of human consciousness. For the first time in years, the editor's grip faltered. But the editor general had anticipated resistance. Inside the Sector Black Citadel, a new protocol was initiated. Project Mirage. Not erasure. Not suppression. Something worse. Induced hallucination. By injecting tailored false realities into targeted minds, the editors planned to distort perception itself. People would believe false lives, fake cities, counterfeit families. They wouldn't forget the truth. They'd be buried under more convincing lies. The council intercepted the launch warning just in time. In a secure hideout beneath Prague. Lena, Trevor, Keanu, and Saeed gathered with 4 others in a stone vault known only as the Root Room. Its walls were covered with relics from different eras. Forgotten books, undeclared paintings, and forbidden maps. A young woman named May, a pattern tracker from Sector 3, spoke first. The Mirage signal goes active in 12 hours. It'll spread through reflections. Mirrors, glass, even still water. The editors are using the world's surfaces against us. Keanu stepped forward. His voice was firm. Then we shut it down before it starts. Lena pointed at a blueprint on the wall. A forgotten satellite array in the Carpathian Mountains. The editors had abandoned it years ago, or so everyone thought. But it was still active. We take it. We jam the Mirage before it reflects, Lena said. Trevor nodded. We have one shot. Let's make it count. Meanwhile, inside Sector Black's simulation core, the editor-general stood before a glowing pool of memory threads. An operator approached. We've generated over 500,000 false realities. Ready to stream. The general turned, mask fractured, voice like iron. Make them beautiful. Make them addicting. And above all, make them feel real. The first wave deployed. Across the world, people began seeing things. A boy in Lisbon saw a dog that had been dead for 5 years playing in his yard. A woman in Morocco swore her husband, who vanished in 1998, was sitting in the kitchen. In Tokyo, a man walked into traffic, believing the street was his childhood garden. The mirage had begun. In the Carpathian Mountains, Trevor and Keanu climbed the icy ridge under moonlight. Behind them, Lena coordinated satellite lockouts. Saeed disarmed external drones while May uploaded the core jamming sequence. Inside the array's central chamber, Trevor inserted the silver cube from Zurich. Keanu keyed in the override code, Althera. The system responded. Mirrors across the world shimmered. The mirage cracked. The reflections turned black, then reset. The hallucinations vanished. The editor-general stood silent. For the first time, the mirage protocol failed. A new order flickered on his display. Error. Story unsupported by reality. His reflection rippled, showing fear beneath the code. Final scene, Trevor's message broadcast. From the mountain array, Trevor sent a second wave through the pulsrider. You may see ghosts. You may hear false memories. But your truth is still yours. Guard it. Live it. And never let a screen, a mirror, or a voice take it from you. The world held its breath. The next war had changed. Now it was no longer about forgetting. It was about what people were willing to believe. Collapse of the narrative core. 2 days had passed since Trevor and the team shut down the Mirage Protocol. The world was stirring. Protests erupted in cities that had no official news coverage. Families reunited with people they were told had never existed. Libraries reported strange books reappearing on shelves. Titles that had been scrubbed from every digital archive. Something had broken loose. It wasn't just memory anymore. It was narrative. Inside Sector Black, the narrative core chamber, the editor-general stood over the trembling floor of the core room. Around him, floating holograms of global storylines glitched and bled into one another. A political coup in Argentina looped infinitely. A celebrity scandal in New York reversed itself every 6 seconds. An entire village in southern India began reporting events that had never happened and yet felt familiar. A technician panicked. Sir, the global feed is destabilizing. People are mixing fiction and memory. They're creating hybrid realities. The general's tone remained calm, then stabilized them with one narrative. A single, unbreakable version. But we've lost control of the timeline index, the technician stammered. They're writing their own stories. Meanwhile, in the arch high over Greenland, the 12 had reassembled. New data revealed that humanity was now split into 3 groups. The remembered, those who had recovered true memories. The compelled, people under influence of fragmented, looping narratives. The fractured, those who could no longer tell the difference between memory and fiction. May stood beside a world map as new sectors blinked into red. We're losing the fractured, she said. Some are inventing lives faster than we can anchor them. If the editors weaponize this instability, they could reset the entire species, said Keanu. Trevor looked at the map and saw his own city, Johannesburg, turning gray. That's my home, he said. My real childhood was there. And my fake one too. They're starting to blur together. Lena took his hand. Then it's time we take the fight to the source. The plan? The council would infiltrate the Seed Archive, an editor-controlled facility hidden under the Pacific where the first synthetic memories were developed. According to Keanu, it was there that the first rewrite began. And it was there the general still kept the original story, the pure thread of human history before it was ever edited. If we get it, Keanu said, we can use it to resynchronize every fractured mind. But it won't be guarded by drones or soldiers. Trevor asked, then who protects it? Lena replied quietly. The forgotten, back underground, The forgotten awaken. In a chamber lined with stone faces, men and women in white robes opened their eyes for the first time in centuries. Not dead, not alive. Placed in stasis since the first version of Earth's recorded history. They were memory anchors, kept hidden by the editors in case something went wrong. Now, they were awake, and their minds were unstable. Each one held a thread to the real world. Each one could anchor truth. But if corrupted, they could unravel reality itself. Final scene, the Editor General's decision. Inside the Sector Black Core, the General gave a command that had never been uttered before. Collapse all local narratives. Shift everyone to a single fallback dream. The AI replied, that would induce mass cognitive trauma. The General's fractured face showed no hesitation. Do it. If they won't live in our story, they won't live at all. And the sky turned white. The descent beneath the ocean. Location: the Pacific Trench, 600 miles west of Guam. Objective: reach the seed archive. Status: unrecorded by any map. Keanu sat in silence aboard the submersible vessel, staring at a circular black case strapped to the wall. Inside it was the last thread, a living fragment of the original story, encoded in audio and emotion. T. Reveilleur sat across from him, reading a passage written by one of the forgotten. The Phi RST lie was not in what they said. It was in what they made us forget to ask. The sub's pilot, May, adjusted course as they near the trench. Her voice came through the headset. The seed archive is dormant, but not empty. If the forgotten are waking, so is the gatekeeper. Trevor blinked. Gatekeeper? Keanu answered without looking up. The very first editor. The only one who still remembers the original world as it truly was. He never left the archive. He became part of it. Arrival. The entrance to the seed archive. The sub came to a halt before an underwater structure the size of a football stadium. It looked like a rib cage forged from black stone and glass. All around it were floating fragments, images, broken thoughts, frozen echoes, as if memory itself was leaking into the ocean. The archive's door wasn't mechanical. It opened like a living creature, recognizing Keanu's presence and breathing open to let them in. Inside, the water drained, and silence greeted them, but not for long. As they walked down a glowing corridor lined with empty memory tanks, they began to hear voices, familiar, forgotten, painful. Trevor froze. I hear my mother, he whispered. She's reading me a story I've never heard before. Lena looked pale. That's not your memory. It's one they wanted you to have. The memory garden. They reached the archive's core, a dome filled with floating memory seeds. Each one shimmered with a hue unlike anything natural. Memories so pure, so original, they hadn't been touched in centuries. In the center stood a single figure. He was barefoot, robed in layers of silk, and bore no eyes. Only two glimmering orbs of shifting light. His voice was kind, ancient, and impossibly calm. I'm a gatekeeper. I remember all versions, even the one before stories. Keanu stepped forward. We've come for the original thread. The gatekeeper held out his hand. You may have it, but only if you choose one truth to restore. One truth, and no more. The world can't hold everything. Trevor stepped forward. Only one. The gatekeeper nodded. Only one. And once chosen, it will overwrite every competing memory. Reality will reshape itself around that single truth. Trevor looked to Keanu, then to Lena, then at the memory garden around him. Infinite possibilities, impossible choices. Then I choose the day it began, he said. The day they rewrote us. The gatekeeper raised a finger, and the world went dark. Flashback, the first rewrite. Trevor stood in a white field beneath a red sun. All around him were children, adults, elders, gathered like witnesses at a foo. Narrow. In the distance stood a black O, Belisk humming with energy. A voice echoed. This was the moment the story changed. Not with war, not with conquest, but with consent. A crowd had once agreed to forget, to restart, to trade pain for comfort, to become characters in a controlled narrative. Keanu stepped beside him in the vision. This is what we buried. This is what they never wanted us to see. Return to the present. Trevor gasped awake in the dome. The gatekeeper held the original thread, now a crystal pulse of golden memory. You have chosen. Take it. Use it. But beware. The editors will sense it, and they will burn the sky before they let it spread. Trevor took the thread, and above the ocean, the sky did begin to burn. Final scene, editor general broadcast. In every screen, every speaker, every mirror, a single voice rang out. The editor general. Yo, you have chosen corruption. So we will now burn truth from the earth. Memory ends here. A countdown began. 24 minutes. The next rewrite, a total wipe, had begun. The race against zero. Time remaining, 24 minutes. Location, the Arch, High Orbit Council Station. The countdown had begun. Monitors flickered red. Winds changed direction on Earth without warning. Digital clocks froze mid-second across the globe. Gravity anomalies were reported from Cairo to Calgary. It had started. The final rewrite would erase all recorded memory, physical, digital, mental, and reset reality into a hollow framework the editors could fill from scratch. In the center of the arch, Trevor stood holding the original thread, a glowing crystal pulsing with golden light, radiating memory strong enough to challenge the rewrite. But it wasn't enough to just hold it. It had to be released. Keanu stood beside him, already preparing the integration chamber. Lena activated the Pulse Rider's core. May calibrated the frequency grid to full global resonance. Saeed monitored editor intercepts from Sector Black. They're throwing everything at us, he reported. Jamming, mirror loops, even hallucination triggers. Doesn't matter, Keanu said. We've come too far. We finished this. Meanwhile, Editor Command, Sector Black. The editor general stood in the reflection chamber, surrounded by over 400 stabilized narratives, frozen, unbreathing, waiting to be injected into the reset. His interface flickered. The countdown appeared again. 0, 17 minutes and 42 seconds. Virius, the AI beneath the core, spoke. The origin. Al thread signal H. As reached level 7 Rents. We are vulnerable to absolute rever. Sal. The general replied. Then we must load the human psyche. Trigger memory flood now. Around the world, the flood begins. People everywhere started hallucinating again, but not illusions this time. Everything. Entire childhoods. Forgotten dreams. Past lives. False lives. Future lives. Too many memories all at once. Hospitals filled with screaming. Traffic collapsed. Children looked at their parents and saw strangers. It was chaos. The editors wanted to break the human mind, so that even if the thread was released, no one would be sane enough to receive it. Back in the arch, Trevor couldn't breathe. He felt memories that didn't belong to him. A wedding in Rome, a death in Antarctica, a life in a bunker that had never existed. He dropped to his knees. They're flooding us, he gasped. Lena grabbed his hand, pressed her forehead to his. Anchor. Find your first truth. He closed his eyes, saw his mother reading to him by candle light, felt the fear of losing her, felt her words. If they ever why to take you away from yourself, speak your name. Trevor whispered, I am not their story, and the thread blazed in his hand. Pulse Rider core activation. The original thread was inserted into the chamber. Energy surged through the arch. Every member of the 12L, inked in through neural threads, each contribute. ING memory. Stability to the wave. The screen blinked. Global. Broadcast ready. Authentication required. Council 12. Keanu turned to Trevor. Say it. Trevor took the mic. No more lies. No more resets. We're the story now. He pressed the activation key. The Pulse Rider fired. World impact. The light of truth. A wave of gold expanded across Earth, invisible to satellites, but felt in every living soul. One by one, hallucinations shattered. Flooded minds quieted. Real memories took root, anchoring fast. In Moscow, a woman remembered her real sister's face. In Nairobi, A boy whispered the name of a father he never met, and now did. In Los Angeles, a street musician played a song he hadn't known for years, but his fingers remembered. The world stopped breaking. The world started remembering. Final confrontation, the editor general's collapse. Sector Black cracked. The glass in the reflection chamber shattered inward. The narratives unraveled. The eddy tore General's mask completely dissolved, revealing a swirling core of code, logic, and fear. He screamed. They were never supposed to choose T. Air. On STO. Re. Keanu's voice echoed through the collapsing network. Then maybe the story didn't need you. The screen blinked. System core failure. Narrative host. Lost. And then, blackness. The editing system shut down. Final scene, Earth. Trevor stood on a hilltop in South Africa as the sun rose. Birds returned to the sky. Children ran barefoot, laughing without confusion. People smiled with the weight of their pain and the truth of their joy. Keanu joined him, quiet. Trevor looked out across the world. Did we win? Keanu replied, we didn't win. We remembered. And now, we protect the memory. After the rewrite. Location, Earth. 3 days after the collapse. The world had changed. Not with explosions. Not with riots. But with the quiet hum of truth returning. Across every continent, people woke with clarity. Some cried. Others sat in silence. But all felt something inside them had shifted, or perhaps come back. Hospitals once filled with the mentally broken were calm. Streets that had been haunted by illusion were clear. Music, forgotten for decades, returned to memory. Stories that had once vanished reappeared in family photo albums and handwritten journals. There was no announcement, no breaking news, but everyone knew. Trevor walked through a quiet park in Johannesburg. Children played beneath trees. A grandmother hummed a lullaby no one had taught her. A man planted a book in the ground. Because stories are seeds now, he said. Trevor sat on a bench, the original thread now sealed inside a crystal that pulsed softly in his hand. He'd been offered security, fame, even control of the restored narrative archives. He refused. Truth doesn't need a throne, he'd told the council. Elsewhere, Keanu walked alone. He visited old places, a burned-down theater in Kyoto, an orphanage in Montana, a rooftop in Brooklyn where he once saw the stars flicker in unnatural ways. He wasn't hiding. He was listening. Because not every editor had vanished. Some were still alive, in shadows, in servers, in minds. And the council knew the next threat wouldn't come with a reset switch. It would come from belief itself. The Council of the Remembered. They reformed under a new name. The 12 Light Keepers. No more rewriting. No more secrecy. They would protect stories, restore forgotten languages, safeguard ancestral memories, and teach children that remembering, even when painful, is freedom. They established the Library of Realities in an undisclosed mountain, where any person could bring a truth too heavy to carry alone and find someone to remember it with them. But one last mystery remained. Deep beneath what had once been Sector Black, in the collapsed ruins of the reflection chamber, a flicker of code pulsed. It wasn't Virius. It wasn't THE Editor General. It was older, an untouched backup. Oh, Noel. INE of T. EXT scrolled slowly ACR. OSS a dormant interface. Origina. L story fragment 13. No. T all memories were freed. And then, new author detected. A name flickered. Lena Moretti. Final scene. A letter from Lena. Trevor received it days later. A return address. Inside was a pressed violet flower, FO, deaded page, and a line written in her unmistakable handwriting. Some stories are too heavy for the RLD, but they still deserve to be written. I'm going to D the missing pages. When I return, we'll finish it together. Trevor folded the letter, closed his eyes, and smiled. The war for memory was over. But the story, the real story, had just begun.